meeting, Tuesday, March 18th, 2020, 7 p.m., board meeting room, 39 Bank Street Southeast, Chatham, Virginia. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Present.
Mr. Farmer.
Here.
Mr. Dudley.
Present.
Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Scarce.
Here.
Mr. Warren.
Here. I would ask that you would observe a moment of silence with us, please. Thank you. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Are there items to be added to the agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I was given a list to read off, and I'll be brief as possible. Add the following items to the consent agenda. Item 7N, IALR appointment, David Bennett, Intertape approval. Item 7O, Business Appreciation Week proclamation approval. Item 7P, Second Amendment to Stanton River Plastics LLC lease purchase agreement approval. And also, Mr. Chairman, like to remove item 7I, naming committee for consent agenda, and also want to remove agenda item 10B4, public hearing, music festival ordinance, potential revisions, adoption.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Mr. Dudley, are we not moving, according to work session, Mr. Hunt, we're going to do the naming of the committee during comment section, is that correct?
Yeah, you're going to explain that, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion to amend the agenda? Okay, please cast your votes. Please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. For
Mr. Chairman.
anyone, for information purposes, for anyone that is here concerning public hearing, concerning the music festival revisions on the ordinance, that is being removed tonight, and I'm sure it'll be back on the agenda next month, and you will be properly notified. You're welcome to stay, but there'll be no action taken on that this evening. The board had discussion on this during work session. We want to be sure that these changes are vetted properly and that everything has been reviewed based on citizens' comments and several meetings we've had. So if you would like to stay, you're welcome certainly to do that, and we'd appreciate that. But if you'd like to depart because you were here for that one issue, there will be no action taken on that issue this evening. Thank you.
But they can't speak at the public meeting. They can speak now. You can tell them that.
They would have had to sign up for hearing of the citizens, Ms. Dixon, and if they have, then fine. If they haven't, then no. Ms. Dixon, they'll have an opportunity to speak next month. No, Ms. Dixon, yeah. Please don't interrupt the meeting, Ms. Dixon. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Please cast your vote. Motion, please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Mr. Scares. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dudley. Any discussion on approval of the consent agenda? Please record your votes. Motion carries unanimously. We have some presentations to make, so I'd ask the board to come down front to make those presentations.
Okay.
Dr. Miller's going to be the one on the
Okay.
community action. You got it. First recognition tonight is for Mr. Matthew Arnold. Is Mr. Arnold here and his family? He had told us he was going to be here. Okay. I'll read his certificate and then we will certainly get it to him. The Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors express its sincere congratulations and admiration for your outstanding state championship win in the Virginia High School League Golf Championship held at Virginia Tech's Pete Dye River Course in Radford on Monday, April 19, 2021. You have performed commendably, bringing recognition not only to yourself, but to your family, school, and the county. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Matthew Arnold, given this 18th day of May, 2021, Robert W. Warren, Chairman. Not only did Mr. Arnold win the championship this year, but he's won the state championship in golf before, and he's also was on the state baseball championship team. So he's had an illustrious high school career and some wonderful accolades. So we will get this to him, and I'm sorry he wasn't able to be here tonight. The board likes to take the opportunity to in particular recognize our young folks when they have these milestones in their lives. So our next presentation is Community Action Month Proclamation presentation, and that is by Dr. Miller, who sits on the Community Action Board. I think we have it here.
I think Mrs. Ross is here, the director of the Pittsylvania County Community Action Agency. Well, I'll come over to you. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. All right. The Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors Community Action Month Proclamation, May 2021. At its business meeting on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors adopted the following proclamation. Whereas community action has made essential contributions to individuals and families across this nation by creating economic opportunities and strengthening communities. And community action is a robust state and local force connecting people to life-changing services and creating pathways to prosperity in 99% of all American counties. And community action builds and promotes economic stability as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities and stable homes. And community action promotes community-wide solutions to challenges throughout the nation's cities, suburbs, and rural areas. And community action delivers innovative services and supports that create greater opportunities for families and children to succeed. Excuse me. And community action insists on community participation and involvement, ensuring that all community sectors have a voice and will be heard. And community action is, excuse me, celebrating 57 years of innovation, impact, and providing proven results for Americans. Sorry. Now, therefore, the board does hereby proclaim May 2021 as Community Action Month in recognition of the hard work and dedication of the Pittsylvania County Community Action Agency. And May 21st, 2021, this coming Friday, as Community Awareness Day throughout the county. Given under my hand this 18th day of May, 2021, Robert W. Warren, Chairman, Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors, David M. Smitherman, Clerk, Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors.
So very much. And everything on that was so true. Thank you.
Yes, our next presenter, actually for the next three, is our supervisor, Mr. Ingram, and this one is for Sheriff Plaster. And I think everybody knows it, but for those that don't, Mr. Ingram, our colleague, is a retired deputy himself of more than 30 years total law enforcement, I think. 34 years and 2 months. So let's give him a hand. So.
Ms. Plaster, if you and your family, and Sheriff Taylor, if you guys would come down here, please. I don't think I can read as quick as Dr. Miller did, but I'll do the best I can. And we wanted to do this last year, but COVID changed a whole lot, and we do apologize for that. This is resolution number 2021-05-01, honoring Sheriff G. Harold Plaster. Virginia, at the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors business meeting on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, the board adopted the following resolution. Whereas Grover Harold Plaster, better known as Sheriff Plaster, the son of Clarence Woodrow Plaster and Dessa Turner Plaster, was born in Patrick County, Virginia on August the 6th, 1946, and whereas he married Mary Ann Quisenberry on September the 18th, 1965, and was married to her for 55 years, and they have a daughter, Kara Plaster Orange, and whereas Sheriff Plaster joined the Virginia State Police in 1967, was stationed in Prince William County, Virginia, and then Pittsylvania County, Virginia, as a state trooper. And whereas he left the Virginia State Police and became the safety director of the Virginia Department of Transportation, followed by a position as director of the Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program. And whereas Sheriff Plaster then became the manager at the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles at the Martinsville and Danville offices, and whereas he ran for office as sheriff in Pittsylvania County in 1984 and 1988, but was unsuccessful. He then ran a third time and was elected sheriff in 1992. And whereas Sheriff Plaster served as county sheriff for 16 years from 1992 until his retirement in 2008. And whereas Sheriff Plaster was the Henry County J.C.'s Young Man of the Year and was also achieved member or active member of Broswell United Methodist Church. And whereas he was a former member of the board of directors of the Broswell Fire Department, chairman of the Sandy River Medical Center, member of the Broswell Ruetan Club, a 32nd degree Blue Lodge Mason, a past president of the Virginia Sheriff's Association and the National Sheriff's Association. He was also the past president of the Virginia Sheriff's Association. Whereas Sheriff Plaster was a faithful and loyal supporter of the Broswell community and the county, and whereas he died on July 23, 2020, in Danville after a long and courageous battle to overcome multiple health issues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board expresses its sincere regret and grief over the loss of such a faithful and loyal member of the county's community. And be it further resolved, the board expresses its gratitude for the life and service of Cheryl Plaster and expresses its condolences to Ms. Plaster and their entire family. And be it finally resolved that the board directs that a copy of this resolution be given to Sheriff Plaster's family, given under my hand this 18th day of May, 2021. Robert W. Warren, Chairman. David M. Smitherman, Clerk of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors. Thank y'all so much. You want to say anything?
Just want to thank everybody. He would be so pleased with this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And Sheriff Taylor and I had the pleasure of working with Sheriff Plaster, and he was quite the man in more ways than one. We sure miss him. Thank y'all so much. And his sister is here. Let's see, this is Karen. Grandson, sister, and sister, right? Okay, thank y'all. We need to get a picture. Move on in here. Yeah.
All right.
Say it again. Our next presentation, as I said earlier, is coming from Mr. Ingram for F.A. Cates, a distinguished member of the Board of Supervisors for a number of years. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Ingram. And he also has the last one, which is for Mr. Shelton, who was another public servant that worked, and we're not going to do it again. I'm just going to let him take control for the next two.
All right, thank you, sir. Y'all know, believe it or not, I've never had to do this before, so 3 in 1 night's not bad. Come on up here, Sherry. This is F.A.'s daughter, Sherry, and husband, Ken. Do y'all have anybody else coming? Okay. Hey, Sherry and I went to school together. I'm thankful for people like her to let me look over her shoulder and pass test. Yeah. This is resolution number 2021-0502. It's a resolution honoring Flinoy A. Cates. Virginia, at its business meeting on Tuesday, May 18, 2021, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors adopted the following resolution. Whereas Flinoy A. Cates, son of Flinoy Edward and Emma Cates of the Axton community, was born April 15, 1924, in Pittsylvania County, Virginia. And whereas Mr. Cates was a graduate of Broswell High School, and whereas he married the late Nina Yates Cates and was married for 62 years, and during their marriage, they had 3 children, Pam, Sherry, and Barry. And whereas Mr. Cates worked for Dan River Mills for 10 years before becoming a dairy farmer, and he owned and operated Cates Dairy for 65 years. Whereas he was a lifelong member of Sugar Tree Primitive Baptist Church, and whereas Cates was an active hunter and fisherman and passionate about wildlife conservation, he once built a pond just for his ducks. And whereas Mr. Cates served on the Soil and Conservation Board, the Piedmont Planning Commission, was a member of the Young Farmers Association, and was a lifetime member of the Farm Bureau, and whereas he ran for the board and won the Tunstall District seat in 1971, where he served for only 32 years, and chaired many committees. And whereas Mr. Cates was affectionately known as the watchdog of the Treasury, and whereas he died in Danville, Virginia at the age of 96. Now therefore be it resolved that the board expresses its sincere regret and grief over the loss of such a faithful and loyal member of the county and a devoted former member of this board. And be it further resolved, the board expresses its gratitude for Mr. Cates' life, his service, and expresses his condolences to his family. And be it finally resolved that the board directs that a copy of this resolution be given to Mr. Cates' family, given under my hand this 18th day of May, 2021. Robert W. Warren, Chairman. David M. Smitherman, Clerk, Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors. All right, picture. Okay, one more. Unfortunately, this is for Mr. H. Darrell Shelton, and he called and was not able to be here tonight. So this is a resolution honoring H. Darrell Shelton. It says, Virginia, at its business meeting on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors adopted the following resolution. Whereas the Pittsylvania County Public Library was established in 1939 by the board with the assistance of the County School Board, Local Federation of Women's Clubs, the Rotary Club, the Chatham Library Association, and the donation of a building and books by Mr. and Mrs. David K. Bruce. And whereas the PPL Foundation was established in 1983 and received IRS 501c3 status effective June 1st, 1984, for the purpose of supporting and raising funds for the library. And whereas in the spring of 1988, the Friends of the Library formally organized under the auspices of the PPL Foundation for the purpose of promoting the library and its services. And whereas the public library and the county have since 1983 been greatly supported by PPL Foundation in library expansion by adding, renovating, or replacing the Broswell, Cascade, Gretna, Mount Hermon library branches, in purchasing, maintaining, and replacing bookmobiles to extend library services to county schools and remote county communities, and in making other major renovations and repairs. And whereas H. Darrell Shelton has served as the PPL Foundation Treasurer since July the 2nd of 1991 and has been instrumental to the success of the PPL Foundation and the County Public Library. And whereas Shelton has also contributed personal, financial, and labor support over the years to the success of the PPL Foundation, Friends of the Library, and the County Public Library. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board recognizes the invaluable contributions made by Mr. Shelton and other volunteers in support of community services and organizations throughout the county. And be it further resolved, the board extends its appreciation to Mr. Shelton for 30 years of volunteer service as PPL Treasurer and his dedication to the County Public Library and to the county, given under my hand this 18th day of May, 2021. Robert W. Warren, Chairman. David M. Smitherman, Clerk, Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors. That's all of them.
Okay, we're down to hearing of the citizens. Each person addressing the board under hearing of the citizens shall be a resident or landowner of the county, or the registered agent of such resident or landowner. Each person shall step up, give his or her name and district in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless further time is granted by the chairman, shall limit his or her address to 3 minutes. No person shall be permitted to address the board more than once during hearing of the citizens. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a body and not to any individual member thereof. Hearing of the citizens shall last for a maximum of 45 minutes. Any individual that is signed up to speak during said section who does not get the opportunity to do so because of the aforementioned time limit shall be given speaking priority at the next board meeting. Absent chairman's approval, no person shall be able to speak who is not signed up. Do we have anyone?
We do, Mr. Chairman. The first one is Mel Vernon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Melvin Vernon, and I live in Villa Park, California. And I'm here speaking with my mom, who owns 67 acres on the top of White Oak Mountain. I flew here from Los Angeles, and I'm tired. I live 3 miles from Angel Stadium and 6 miles from Disneyland. And when 40,000 people exit those venues, they do so onto 6-lane streets and 2 freeways 10 to 12 lanes wide. As I mentioned, I came through LAX, where I went through metal detectors, was subject to search, and was sniffed by a well-trained dog for explosives. Now, I know that it only takes one crazy person who thinks it's the end of times and wants to go out with a bang to mess things up for a whole bunch of people. And a venue with 35,000 people might just be that place. I'm concerned about the health and safety of the attendees and the people who own nearby properties. Thanks for allowing me to give my 2 cents worth. The local people need protection and compensation for the environmental impacts, noise, and limits on mobility when the impacts can't be mitigated. Now, I know y'all are smart enough to figure that out, and I propose that those owning property within 2 miles of the venue receive 2 cents or 2 pennies for every person admitted to the venue per acre of ownership, up to a maximum of $10,000. In other words, if there are 35,000 people there, 2 cents equals $700. For 1 acre, that would be $700. For 2 acres, $1,400, up to a maximum of $10,000. If you've lived under an international flight path of an international airport, the courts would rule in favor of those impacted residents, and you should do likewise. Now, if you do that, I think most will be supportive. The locals might just take a vacation to some place where it's peaceful and quiet, and everyone's happy, and might I suggest Disneyland. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that goes well, and I hope you can take into consideration all the worst-case scenarios and provide for the health and safety of those people and those that live nearby. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vernon. Do we have someone else?
I have Joan Vernon.
Jean Harper Vernon, Pittsylvania County native. I just have 3 things to mention. Some of you may have seen this sign
Excuse me, Ms.
before.
Vernon. Which district do you live in?
I live in the city of Danville. Live in the city of Danville.
Do you own property in Pittsylvania County?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Where?
The property is on the top of White Oak Mountain. And also on Blair's 29, a farm. Mhm. Well, I just want to speak of three things. This sign, which some of you may have seen, and I brought a suit against someone to stop a junkyard, and I won the suit, but the junkyard is still there. I want to point out on that 863, the route leading into the site of the music festival, there's another junkyard, and that's not really pretty for Pittsylvania County. That's enough said about that, but we really want to make the area appropriate for the venue and the experience that will take place there. I want to speak about a mosh pit. And I said this yesterday to someone, and she said to me, "Oh, that's so much fun." Well, in my research about a mosh pit, I'm not sure it's so much fun. And these festivals have those things where people fight each other and beat up against each other. Sometimes people have been killed, people have had brain injuries, people have been maimed because of a mosh pit. So be careful when you're thinking about that. And they do occur. And she said, we might even have 200,000 people there. I said, I hope not. I'm sure we can handle that. The other thing is I'm concerned about cleanup. I'm concerned about destruction of property in that area. It's a beautiful area, and the property owned is above it, and I certainly don't want it messed up. I want it to be cleaned and fixed appropriately for the next festival that comes along. Also, I wonder how those macadam roads, you know what they are, can handle any big equipment that's going to come in there. They're just rock roads. One lane. You've been there, surely. And I'm really concerned. I want people to be safe. I want it to be a happy event if it takes place. But we have many things to think about, and I'm really concerned. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do we have anyone else?
We do. Deborah Dix.
I'm Deborah Dix, Chatham Blairs, and I live on Lester Lane. It's a very quiet neighborhood. We have herds of deer, raccoons, possums, rabbits, and everything. And as Ms. Vernon said, the road is bad. I have been run off that road at the bridge because White Oak Creek runs underneath it by a logging truck. At that time, it's a curve in there, and either he didn't see me or he didn't care, because I had to run off in order to not get hit, and the ditch is really deep there. I don't understand why anybody want to pick this area to send 30,000 people into. Pittsylvania County has a great place at Berry Hill Park. I have lived in RTP, that's which is Research Triangle Park, and Cary, and they have nice industrial parks that are like real parks. You can walk, they don't mind you going to their campuses, and it'd be great if y'all could start a venue out there to attract people and make it into a park-like area. I cannot, in the parking, we've had festivals there 2 years ago, and the people were shuttled in. So the parking was not a problem. I don't know why they cannot be shuttled in. Plus, I have not read your notes on how you can proceed with this, but weather is a problem in my area. I've lived there 15 years. That road floods at 2 to 3 inches of rain, Lester Lane. The other road also floods down at that bottom, because that is wetlands through there. That whole road has flooded. I've had a tornado come through my backyard. It was on the top of White Oak Mountain, jumped into the camping grounds, jumped into the cemetery, jumped over my house, thank goodness, jumped into the Lester's area and tore his buildings up. and then jumped into the industrial park, and then jumped over Route 29 and tore off a roof. So we have wild weather there, and it's just not one tornado. I have pictures of others on top of that mountain. So, what?
Need to wrap it up.
All right. Anyway, please consider the road, the weather, and my property. Maybe it can be devalued since before the assessment.
Thank you, Ms. Dix.
Now we have Dennis Smith.
Mr. Smith.
No. Jonathan Holly.
Good evening. Good to see you all out. I know this has been tabled, but while I'm here, and thank you all for the careful consideration of this music festival ordinance. I know we had a local meeting of the community last week, and thank you, Chairman Warner and Mr. Scaris as well for coming out and attending that. A few of the things, and we did not see this until last week's public hearing meeting, was some of the things are being changed in that, and I forgot. Jonathan Holly, Blair's Chatham division. So the Music Festival Ordinance, it seems to be all-encompassing for many different events, not just music festivals. So may want to give some consideration to possibly even just renaming it. I mean, I don't know if Music Festival Ordinance is appropriate for an outside event that's not music, Mud Bog or anything ODAC or, up the lake or anything else. The other thing was under Section 10.2B. It says exceeding 6 hours that this kind of encompasses or governs. Is there anything that does govern or oversee any events that will be under 6 consecutive hours of a music festival or music event? And then the next comment was around Section 10.4, G and H, and that's concerning the lighting and the sound. It just says unreasonable. And, that's to be very subjective. Unreasonable for me may be different from unreasonable for you. I know we had a discussion about the noise as far as what our Pittsylvania County noise ordinance is. So we might want to reference to that document for the sound. For the lighting, that's, again, it's hard to determine as to spillage over to a residential. Where I live, I don't think that's a concern, but on Lester, there's a few folks that are right in the backyard right there. So, again, thank you all for the consideration. You guys are here to hopefully do your due diligence, consider all things of both the possibilities, the benefits, but also for protecting, looking out for the well-being and the safety of our community and the citizens in the community. So for that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, sir.
Dylan Sparks.
Good evening, gentlemen of the board. My name is Dylan Sparks, and I'm a resident of Chatham Blairs. I want to start by thanking you for this opportunity to speak, and I also want to applaud you for taking more time to think about this issue and hear citizens. I hope the comments I'm about to make help to kind of inform you about how citizens feel and that you'll keep it in consideration. The first main thing I want to speak on is the peace and happiness of all the families who live near the proposed venue location. They deserve to be able to spend their days and nights in peace without being disturbed by loud music, and I sincerely hope the board passes regulations which protect their right to that. No child should be distracted from homework due to noise issues. No retiree should have to give up the tranquility of what should be some of the best years of their life due to loud noises after they bought their property with the expectation that Pittsylvania County will be a safe and peaceful place for them to live with their families. Thus, for both the houses that are close to the venue and for houses that are miles away, we deserve ordinances that protect all local homeowners who have paid their taxes for this county for so long and sacrificed so much to get to where they're at. Another major concern is the proposed size of the venue. If the proposal would have been within the range of 3,000 to 5,000 people, that still would have been a very, very large concern for a community that is largely undeveloped, that's residential in nature, and that's not equipped for a large venue of that nature. However, it would have been much more digestible then a venue proposal that will pack 30,000 people, which is half the population of Pittsylvania County, into a small, already congested area, an area where the infrastructure is not in place to support a project of that scale and probably won't be for a very long time and without a lot of investment. I strongly encourage the board to pass ordinances that restrict the size of musical venues to reasonable numbers and to restrict them from starting any events until all efforts have been made to update local roads and build the infrastructure of this community. My final concern of the night rests in the real danger to the health and the safety of the residents of Pittsylvania County that will be presented by the proposed venue. When you have thousands of people coming into our community to party hard for days on end, drink alcohol, and do who knows what else within our community, that's an issue which goes beyond simple enterprise and tax revenue, and that impacts every single man, woman, and child in Pittsylvania County. A 2018 survey shared by the Gateway Foundation of music festival attendees found that 73.4% of attendees have reported drug use in the past year. Think about how often we have unfortunate accidents in this county where people lose their lives due to drunk driving and drug use. And imagine what the additions of thousands upon thousands of people would entail for our community. These are the types of social...
You'll have to wrap it up.
Okay. These are the types of social costs that are presented when these types of things are brought. And I trust that the Board of Supervisors, serving as the voice of Pittsylvania County citizens with a purpose to protect our health, our safety, and our prosperity, will take these concerns into consideration and create regulations that reflect our will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
Howard Terry.
Okay, 3 minutes is not a long time, so I'll try to talk fast here with a lot of information.
Can you give us your information and
Yeah.
where you live?
Okay, my name is Howard Terry, Dan River District. I was born in Danville 70 years ago. I was uprooted 5 years later, so I've been away for a long time. But in 2009, I was brought back to this area based on a legacy of love from my great-grandmother. And since that time, I have been on a mission to fulfill her legacy of love. It's been a long road. I do appreciate you all giving me this 3 minutes. It really is a blessing to me to be here. Yeah.
Please reset his time to 3 minutes because we wanted to find out.
Okay, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Okay, so as I said, I was born in Danville 7 years ago in the hospital. I was probably the first one in my family to be born in a hospital. Otherwise, I would have been born on a tobacco farm in Ringgold, Virginia. And so when I was uprooted, the last sense I had about this area was red clay dirt, and that's never left me. And so when my grandmother died with this legacy of 150 acres left intestate because she died without a will, it became heir property. I was brought back by family members who talked to me about seeing what I could do to help sort all of that out. So that was 2009. Since then, it's been a long, arduous road, but we've gotten to this point now. And basically, I'll just get right to, I've been keeping lots of good records about this the entire time, about what's happening. I did hand out to this young lady here just a couple of pieces of information from this booklet, which I did hand her one booklet of, and that was number 18, which shows the proceeds from this property that went into the Treasury here in Pittsylvania County. And number 22 is the statute that says that this board has the sole discretion to decide what happens to this money. So I have, again, all the information to provide to this. It does, on the check, it does say it's for the beneficiaries of Mary Jane Walters. The state says this money may be abandoned. I'm here to say, no, I'm here to represent this family and this legacy, and I would hope that you all would take that into consideration and ask me any questions you have to ask. I've answered lots of questions over the last 12 years. I've asked questions. None of my questions have been answered. The courts have never denied me any of this. The only holdup, I believe, has been lawyers, bad lawyers, has prevented me from being successful here. So, unless anybody had any questions, I don't know what else to
The hearing
say.
of the citizens is not a question
I
and answer
understand that.
exchange. so-
I understand that. So that's basically all I have to say is,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That is all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We'll move to public hearing, rezoning, case number 1, R-21-007, and I will open the public hearing at 7:46, and Ms. Ragsdale.
Case R-21-007, Cornerstone Church of Christ, has petitioned to rezone 1.74 acres located on State Road 703, Fairview North, in the Bannister Election District from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to combine with an adjacent parcel of land zoned A1. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, representatives from Cornerstone Church of Christ are here to represent the petition.
Okay. Does anyone from Cornerstone like to make any comments? Did anyone sign up?
No, sir.
Okay. Does any board member have any questions for Ms. Rags? Okay. I'll close the public hearing at 7:48 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Dr. Miller.
in case R-21-007, I move that the petition to rezone from R1 to A1 be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Miller, seconded by Mr. Dudley. Any discussion on the motion? Please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. The property's been rezoned for Cornerstone. Thank you all. We're down to case number 2, case number R-21-008, and I'll open that public hearing at 7:49. Ms. Raxton.
Case R-21-008, Gregory and Janie Robinson have petitioned to rezone 24.72 acres located on State Road 750 Oxford Road in the Gretna Election District from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District and A1 Agricultural District to A1 Agricultural District to allow a second dwelling to be constructed on the property. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Gregory Robinson is here to represent the petition.
Mr. Robertson, do you have anything you'd like to add, sir? Okay, thank you, Mr. Robertson. Does anybody sign up?
No, sir.
All right, I'll close the public hearing at 7:50 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, in case R-21-008, I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning of 24.72 acres from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to allow a second dwelling to be constructed on the property. The rezoning would be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan.
Motion made by Mr. Farmer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Robinson, your property's been rezoned, sir. We're down to case number 3, and I'll open the public hearing at 7:51. And it's public hearing R-21-009. Ms. Ragsdale.
Case R-21-009, Haley Gatewood Jr. has petitioned to rezone a total of 1.20 acres located on U.S. Highway 29 in the Chatham Blair's election district from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to combine with an adjacent parcel of land zoned A1. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are permitted. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Haley Gatewood is here to represent the petition.
Okay. Ms. Gatewood, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing at 7:52 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve case R-21-009 to rezone a total of 1.2 acres from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to combine with an adjacent parcel. The rezoning would be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Scarce, seconded by Mr. Farmer. Any discussion on the motion? Please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Gatewood, your property's been rezoned, sir. We're down to public hearing case number R-21-010. I'll open that public hearing at 7:53. Ms. Ragsdale.
Case R-21-010, Mark Red has petitioned to rezone 0.118 acres located off State Road 685 Chalk Level Road in the Bannister Election District from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to combine with an adjacent parcel of land zoned R1. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. Once the property is rezoned to R1, all uses listed under Section 35-222 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Mark Red is here to represent the petition.
Okay, Mr. Red, do you have anything you'd like to add, sir? Thank you. Anyone sign up?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing at 7:54 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Dr. Miller.
in case R-21-010, I move that the request be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Davis. Is there further discussion on the recommendation? Hearing none, please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Red, your property's been rezoned, sir. We're down to case number 5, case R-21-011, and I'll open that public hearing at 7:55. And Ms. Ragsdale.
Case R-21-011, Jeremy and Julia Watson have petitioned to rezone 44.30 acres located on State Road 665 Rockford School Road in the Stanton River Election District from RC1 Residential Combined Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to allow for agricultural use. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with opposition that the petitioner's request be denied. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Jeremy Watson is here to represent the petition.
Okay, Mr. Watson, would you like to add to it, sir? Yes, sir, please come forward.
So my wife and I had purchased this property at 1132 Rockford School Road back in November. We purchased it with intent. We've got 4 kids. We kind of wanted the kids to be able to grow up being able to learn something about agriculture. And so we purchased the property with the hopes to rezone it and have a small farm there for our children so that we could do things with them. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. We actually have even offered some proffers, to limit the number of cattle that we would apply to the property, to make sure that we could, we could have the property, but also do it in a neighborly manner also. I think you'll also see that I've actually spent quite a bit of time with the Pittsylvania County Agricultural Commission, worked with them. I've spent a lot of time working with them to figure out good ways to use the property. I think that may be actually enclosed in some of the literature that you have. So, that's kind of our plan, is to be able to use it for a small farm for our children, to help them to grow up and have the opportunity in agriculture like I did when I was young, and hopefully not to want to play video games for the rest of their life. So, and like I said, we have spent quite a bit of time, and effort and money in the property, trying to get the property, fixed up nice, and to do our due diligence to make sure that using the property, that we would use it in a manner that's well suited to meet the neighborhood and to be used, correctly. And, one of the big reasons that we actually bought in Pittsylvania County was just because Pittsylvania County had such a good agricultural extension program. We rode by, looked at the property. A lot of the properties around us are zoned to agriculture. There's cattle that butts up to my property, cattle across. And so that's what drove us to come into Pittsylvania County from Bedford County, was the fact of, the extension agency here, and the fact that Pennsylvania was an agricultural friendly community. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ms. Ragsdale, can you review the proffers that were offered, please? Okay.
So included in your packet, you'll see that Mr. Watson has offered the following proffers. 1, no more than 30 cows, not including calves. 2, no more than 5 hogs on the property for personal use. And no intensive livestock as defined by Pittsylvania County Code, Section 35-189.
Thank you. I just wanted that on the record for the audience that's watching.
Mr. Ragsdale,
Got another question?
just have one quick question. I'm looking at the map overview. Normally, we get an idea of what the other properties are zoned. It looks like it's a pretty agricultural area. So can you give us an idea of what's surrounding this property?
So the majority of the properties around this property are either residential or agriculture, with the majority of them being A1. The majority of the properties across the street, I believe, without looking at the map, are A1, and there's some adjacent to this property. There's also some residential adjacent to this property on one side as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else sign up?
Yes, sir. Faye Dalton.
Ms. Dalton.
My main concern is this property was bought as residential and zoned as residential, and we've been living in a neighborhood quite some time, and was all surrounded by all brick homes, nice quiet neighborhood, and we or you or anyone else wouldn't want cattle on top of you if you live in a nice residential zone, a residential area with all brick homes surrounding the area. And it was zoned as residential when purchased, so I don't understand why didn't you do your homework before you purchase it to see if it could be rezoned. But no one would want to live in the area and go out. Couldn't Mr. Wilson, 85 years old, been living there 85 years old on oxygen, and he couldn't even go out on his porch without smelling hogs or cattle or whatever, and flies flying all around. And you guys are here to protect the people in the Pittsylvania County area, not a residents in another county. We elected you guys to protect us, and that's what we expect. And we, it's in, on that land, it's no water supply source, cattle or no cattle, it's no water supply sources, no creek, no branch. It might be a swamp because the land joins mine, and there's no way for the cattle to get any water. Or if you live 30 miles away, you're not going to be coming over here every day feeding the cattle, make sure they have water, or you're not going to be the one smelling the smell like the people that lives there. It's nothing against Mr. Watson, but the neighbors that's been living there for 85 years or longer, and I've been living there 20 years, we do not appreciate having a hog farm and going out and can't raise your windows or out in the yard. And Mr. Tim Dudley knows where I live. He knows it's a nice area. He's been there several times. So, and the environmental impact it would have on the neighborhood. And I think you should consider the residents of Pittsylvania County when you make your decision. So, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
Anyone else sign up?
Myra Jones.
Good evening, Ms. Myra.
Good evening. Thank you for taking time to listen to us. My family has, it's a 4 generations lived in that property, and that community has been a very close-knit community for all of those 4 generations. And the community support one another, we fellowship with one another, and I agree that when the land was purchased, it was residential. It is a community that does have some agriculture, but the community now is a aged community, and those people that live there are no longer farming that kind of way that do have agriculture. It's usually crop. It's not so much of cattle. My father is the 85-year-old that she speaks of that's on the oxygen, and their golden years should be able to sit outside and enjoy. So anybody who's grew up on a farm knows that you can't control the smell, you can't control the wind, and to have 5, I appreciate, what I do want to say is that I do appreciate a compromise that when he purchased it, apparently he had done some homework to know that he could possibly convert it over to agriculture, to the, the A1. And so with that being said, it's not that when you purchase land, you want to be able to do what you want to do with it. But also, I would hope that you would get a feel of what the neighborhood is like as well. And so I think when Mr. Watson originally started to get to know some of the neighbors, their impression was that it wasn't going to be a bunch of cows and not 5 pigs, because I already know they would have been, nobody wants to smell the pigs. We've all grew up with them, and no one has them anymore around there. That's close by. And so his property is right in front of my parents' property, and they have the most exposure to them besides Faye. And so that would impact their quality of life, and especially since they do not live in the neighborhood to control their, I don't know what arrangements they have made, but if you're going to live 30+ miles away, that's going to be a difficult management. So I do appreciate him considering the compromise. I just think that it's a lot for them on it. Like I said, it's been 4 generations there. And so I would just hate to see there be any uproar. We've never had any.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myra.
Anyone else?
Juan Smith.
Good evening, Ms.
afternoon.
Smith.
My name is Juan Smith. Excuse me. I live directly across from the property that Mr. Watson is purchasing, the Stone District. My concern is, like she said, the stench, the odor, because it is a retired community, senior citizens, very quiet. We like to sit on the porch. We like to let our windows up on weather like this when it's nice and cool. It's a nicer community. Like I said, we all get along. We talk to each other. We support each other. And it's not that we're trying to cause a problem, but we would like for our community to remain as is, if at all is possible. I thank you for your attention, and we appreciate all that you all would consider for us. And then the only question I would ask is, who in the world would not like to stand in God's universe and smell the clean air? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruby Wilson.
Good evening, Ms. Ruby.
Good evening. My name is Ruby Wilson, and I would just like to just add a little bit to what they're saying. It is a most likely a retired now. My husband worked at Lynchburg Foundry, so he has a condition who the doctor said he did have. So now of age, 85 years he has spent on this land. He was born where we live now. Of course, the house has burned down. And further, he has lived is about 2 miles up the road. So he has spent his entire life there. And we're not trying to block Mr. Watson, but we know what can happen. Because at one time, a person tried to raise some hogs, but they couldn't contain the flies or the smell or nothing there. So after that didn't work out, we're hoping not to go back into nothing else that's going to bother our health. Because we pay taxes too, and we have bought land too, you know. And farming, his family is young, we're old, you know. So it'll be a long time before he'll know whether his children will want to be farmers or not farmers, you know. So this is some of the things that we are looking at. And when it says that they agreed, they volunteered. Okay, now does this mean that, say for instance, if 6 months from now they say, well, this is not what we want to do, we're not going to volunteer any longer. Because if I volunteer to help you this week, I don't necessarily have to volunteer next week to help you, right? So, you know, we hope you all will consider what we're not trying to block the family. We're just trying to find out what's coming to us. Because we're not young enough to move around. We can't live in another county. We have to live where we live. So please consider our beings too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Do we have anybody else?
James Wilson.
Good evening, James.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the board for listening to us this afternoon. I will begin this conversation like we did at the last meeting. Our community was built off faith and trust. And somewhere down the line, nothing against Mr. Watson, I feel like trust was broken. We have 4 generations who grew up in this community, who've tended land, we farmed. And in the midst of all of this, what he's trying to accomplish, he had an opportunity. There was other land in the area that was agriculture already without rezoning. I know that he's coming from Bedford, which has plenty of opportunity for agricultural land where he lives. My main concern is with the proffer, if he decides to go with chickens or turkeys or sheep or goat somewhere down the line, will this be covered? My next concern is, by him living so far away, if anything gets out of hand, who's going to handle the problem? My question to you all tonight, out of the 4 generations, we have paid taxes to this county for many years. And tonight I'm looking at the integrity of the Supervisors Board, because we depend on you all to represent the people who've been here for such a long time. I'm also, if this is passed tonight, I will be looking at the character of my neighbor, because it will speak if he's standing to his word, which is the truth, or telling something else. We live in a society now that we used to believe in, man put his hand on the Bible. It was about the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We're living in a world now that the truth is being exposed. We're in a society where politicians tell us visible what we see is not what we see. So I'm taking the opportunity tonight to ask the board to reconsider and to leave this as it is. My father, like I say, is on auction. We have a community, no crime, everybody works together, everybody grew up together. I know most of the property in that area and how it operates. I know that he doesn't have water. When you say that he can have 30 cows, excluding calves, so that moves to 60, in my opinion, if each cow had a calf. So that would move that ratio to 60. Somewhere down the line, if this proposal is granted, what's to say that he says, well, we had 5 pigs and we 5 more. I'll be sitting down, but I would just like to thank the board to reconsider this notion.
Mr. Wills, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Because I'm not as familiar with this area as I'm sure Mr. Dudley is and some other colleagues. Your property, you said you're the largest landowner in that area.
No, I said, we've been in that area and our family through generations had the largest land area in that area.
Is any of your family properties owned A1 in that area?
Yes, I have an uncle.
Did you all ever have any cattle or any hogs during this 4 generations?
He had cows and he had about 400 head of pigs at one time. Okay. And that was a nightmare for 4 years.
Yeah, I can't imagine 400.
You couldn't even sit outside and do anything.
I've killed some hogs, but not anywhere near 400.
Okay, all right. Well, sorry for going over my minutes, and thank you for the
Oh, no,
opportunity
no
to speak.
problem. No problem. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it, Jane.
And I just have Jeremy Watson. I think he wanted to speak again.
Mr. Watson, would you like to address the board again?
I would just like to say, I mean, I do hear the concerns of the neighbors, and I am a very honest person. Obviously, I don't know that conveys across without getting to know somebody, but I mean, what I've offered for proffers is my understanding a legal contract that I've offered to the county. That's not something that I necessarily just volunteered and said, well, hey, I'll do this. I can change my mind next week if I want to. I mean, that is a binding document that I've had notarized and presented to the county to ensure that that I have to abide by it. And, you know, I know that there has been some concerns over a hog farm. I mean, we asked for 5 hogs for personal use, not for a hog farm. And there's also several other properties around us right now. Actually, the one that butts up against mine, I believe is Miss Lewis Dove's property. There's cattle on that across from Detective Oscar Meeks. There's cattle on the property across from there. So there's cattle that butts up right in that area. And obviously, I'm not down there every day, but I never have had an issue with smelling that. And I don't intend to have any type of bad smells or anything coming off my property. I mean, we raised cows for a long time, and you couldn't smell. A dairy farm was the only thing I've ever really had a problem with smelling, because if the cattle are spread out across the acreage, they usually, you know, they use the bathroom and stuff, not all in one place. And we do have water on the property. I know that was a concern, but there is a well on the property. There is actually a creek that runs the whole backside of the property that separates mine from the Rollins property. So, you know, we do have, and like I said, you know, I understand that there is somewhat of a concern for us living, you know, farther away. Ms. Dove's property, the gentleman that has cattle on there doesn't live on the property. I'm not sure where he lives, but that is one of the reasons that we've sought the counsel of the Agriculture Extension Agency to ensure that we build proper fencing and proper measures to make sure that we keep in any animals that we have. I mean, like I said, our intention is not to have animals for somebody else to take care of, nor is it to cause any issues in the neighborhood. It's really just you know, the property has been in agriculture for years. The property was raised for tobacco for many, many years. As a matter of fact, we found a lot of old receipts and stuff on the property. So it's been in agricultural use for quite a while. And like I said, our wish is just to be able to use it on a small scale, not to be able to get out and use it in any way that's going to have any negligible effect on the neighborhood. Because, like I said, looking at the animals that are around the neighborhood now, I definitely don't see that as any negligible effect on the neighborhood. It definitely didn't hurt the property value that I was purchasing because there was cows that butted up to it. I mean, and I agree, there's very nice homes. I mean, Miss Dalton has a nice home, the Wilsons have a nice home, and everybody keeps their places up nice there. And like I said, our intent is not to get in there and destroy or hurt any of it. It's just for us to be able to use the property that we bought. And we did do our homework. We actually called and talked to the community development before we bought it, and that's how we got to where we're at now, because she said, yes, you can submit to have the property rezoned. And being that there was, you know, several of the properties that were agricultural or that were in land use that butted up to us, you know, we felt like, especially with Pittsylvania County being an agricultural community, that it wouldn't be an issue to submit to have it rezoned. So it's not that we just purchased it out of stupidity and said, well, we'll change it later. So that's all.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Hunt, would you mind addressing for the citizens the proffer and the legalities of the proffer and how long they last?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Proffers are binding conditions that attach to a piece of property once they're entered, and they run with the land, and they are attached to that land for perpetuity. So if someone sells that piece of land, those proffers, they're recorded in the clerk's office, and those proffers are binding on all future owners of that land. So it's not something that's done lightly, and you can't just say, let's forget about this in a couple of years. This is binding on all, the current owner and all future owners of that land.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And Ms. Ragsdale, I think you said the Planning Commission, I may have missed it. What was the vote on that?
They recommended denial. That was a 7-0 vote. That was before Mr. Watson offered the proffers.
Okay, did you all vote after the proffers were offered?
No, he submitted the proffers to staff after the vote had occurred. So after the planning commission, he came back and offered proffers to present to you all at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll entertain your board's pleasure.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to thank Faye for being here tonight. She spoke. Faye Dalton, I visited with her yesterday.
Excuse me, Mr. Dudley, for interrupting you, but I need to close the public hearing. I didn't do that.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
At 8:20. And now go ahead, Mr. Dudley.
Yes, sir. I want to thank Miss Dalton. She was kind enough to allow me to come there and visit with her. You know, we did discuss the issue, and I want to discuss also, thank Mr. and Ms. James Wilson. I've known this family, 45 years maybe, 45 years. I played ball with James, the young guy that stood up there. And Mr. Wilson, the 85-year-old gentleman everybody was talking about, he's in the brown right there. Raise your hand, Mr. Wilson. That's him right there. Anyway, I've known him, good friends of our family. And anyway, I just want to thank them. Miss Ruby, for being here. Appreciate you coming up and speaking tonight. Thank you so much. And Myra, just met her. This is their daughter. And I told Miss Ruby the good looks flows into women. I can promise you that. But anyway, thank you guys for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Miss Myra's husband, thank you so much for being here, sir. Also, Ms. Smith, I spoke with her, I believe, today on the phone. Is that correct? And we discussed some things. I want to discuss with the board a little bit. I am on the Planning Commission as the Board Supervisor representative.
Mr. Dudley, let's get a motion on the floor before we start discussing.
Okay, all right. Well, just let me make a motion. In case R-21-011, I make a motion to approve the rezoning of a total of 44.30 acres from RC1 Residential Combined Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to allow for agricultural use with the proffers offered by the petitioner. The rezoning would be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. And that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Dudley, seconded by Mr. Scares. We're now open for discussion. Mr. Dudley.
Yes, sir. And I apologize for jumping in front of the gun. I apologize. These folks, they are home folks. They've lived there for years and years. I said I'm on the Planning Commission. I've been on that now for 3.5, almost 4 years going. And when this was brought to the Planning Commission, I think a lot of people was under the assumption and that it could be in upwards of 300 cows. I believe that's correct. And that this is hang on. But anyway, we didn't want to give the impression this was going to be intensive livestock or strong farming on a small acreage. So we denied it so that the petitioner could go back and do maybe his due diligence, homework a little more. And he had agreed, he worked, I think, with Emily, Vaden Hunt. He contacted them. He and I have just seen each other twice. I had to ask Emily tonight to point him out because I didn't know him. I know these folks here. But anyway, he's offered these proffers, 30 cows, 5 hogs, and no intensive livestock. And that's a far cry from 300 or 100. You know, I think that the land, according to Extension, the land will hold the cattle that he's asking for. So with that, that is my discussion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Any other discussion or questions from the board? Okay, we got a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And this vote for yes is to approve. Vote no is to decline. Motion carries unanimously. Your property's been rezoned. Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you,
We're
Mr.
down to
Watson.
Case number 6, public hearing R-21-012. I'll open that public hearing at 8:25. Ms. Ragsdale.
Case R-21-012, Gentry Farms LLC has petitioned to rezone 2 parcels totaling 56.13 acres located on State Road 734, Clarks Mill Road, in the Dan River Election District from R1 Residential Suburban Subdivision District to A1 Agricultural District to allow for agricultural use and an event venue. The Planning Commission recommended by a 7-0 vote with no opposition that the petitioner's request be granted. Once the property is rezoned to A1, all uses listed under Section 35-178 are permitted. The staff summary is enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, representatives from Gentry Farm LLC are here to represent the petition.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name's R.J. Lackey. I'm an attorney in Danville. I represent Danville Gentry Farms. I only have a couple quick comments that there's A1 around this area that abuts it, and the owners had absolutely no contact from anyone in opposition, regardless of people nobody showed up either. Otherwise, I'm just here to answer any questions you may have or address any concerns.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
Just hang around. Let's see if we got something to come up. Anybody sign up?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing at 8:27 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, in the case of R-21-012, submitted by the Gentry Farms LLC requesting to rezone a total of 56.13 acres located off State Road 734, Clarks Mill Road in the Dan River District, shown on the tax map as GPIN number 2346-890267 and 2346-995750 to allow this property to be used for agricultural uses, livestock, and for recreational use, event venue. So I make the motion we allocate that request, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. All right. We're down to other public hearings. Each person addressing the board under a public hearing shall step up, give his or her name and district and his or her place of residency for non-county citizens in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless further time is granted by the chairman, shall limit his or her address to 3 minutes. Speakers for a group shall be limited to 10 minutes. Speakers shall conclude their remarks at that time, unless the consent of the board is affirmatively given to extend the speaker's allotted time. Absent chairman's approval, no person shall be able to speak who is not signed up. I'll open public hearing number 1, VDOT Secondary 6-Year Plan at 8:29, and Mr. Craddock.
Good evening. Section 33.2-331 of the Code of Virginia, as amended, requires that the County Board of Supervisors, in conjunction with the Department of Transportation, formulate a 6-year secondary road improvement plan priority list. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public comments on the proposed secondary 6-year plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2027 in Pittsylvania County. Let me point out that the 6-year plan is not a construction plan, but rather an allocation plan. In other words, over the next 6 years, we will allocate money to the projects listed towards the construction of that road. I'll now read from the draft priorities plan you should have in your packets. On page 1, the first one on the list is a work task order to upgrade approximately 5 miles of high-volume secondary road from surface treatment to plant mix asphalt to improve the rideability. Now we're getting into the rural rustic projects, which is to pave an unpaved road. The first one on the list which was already on the list. These first ones I'm reading were on there from years past, but Route 607 Robertson Road, which we plan to have paved in the next month or so. Route 605 Tosh's Road, we were hoping to be working on that this week, but I had a piece of equipment break down, a major piece of equipment, so we're looking at starting that at the end of May. Route 707 Cox's Store Road, we're looking at that later this summer or fall. Route 886 Gandy Road, later this summer or fall. Route 602 Moons Road, this fall or early spring next year. Route 669 Mellon Road, also this fall or possibly spring of next year. Route 793 Cherrystone Lake Road is on the schedule for next summer. Route 774 Darby Road next summer. Route 601 Hubbard Road. Route 638 Rourke Mill Road. And starting on page 3, that's when we got away from doing individual projects for each road. So there's one project with various roads on that one UPC number. So the roads are listed over in the right-hand column in the comments. So for the fiscal year 24 unpaved road projects, over on the right, you'll see we have Route 889 Oliver's Lane, Route 741 Friendly Drive, Route 750 Oxford Road, and Route 924 Pocket Road. Now we're starting to get into the ones that were not previously on the 6-year plan. So these are all new ones added. Fiscal year 25 projects, we've got Route 929 Victoria Road, Route 766 Magnolia Road, Route 789 Valley Road, and Route 1052 Pitchfork Road. And then for fiscal year 26, we've got Route 783 Tomahawk Mill Road, Route 940 Owens Mill Road, Route 654 Dalton's Farm Lane, Route 803 Hawkins Road, Route 848 Joe Carter Road. And then for fiscal year 27, we've got Route 792 Tucker Road, Route 1527 Almond Road, Route 893 Chestnut Lane, Route 842 Hollybill Drive, Route 822 Ponderosa Road, Route 709 Herman Farmer Road, and Route 975 Eddie's Lane. And the remainder of the items on the last page are cost centers, which can be used for various things, but we have those cost centers set up to do engineering and survey work, right-of-way work, countywide traffic services work, and drainage improvement projects. So at this time, we would solicit comments from the public on the priority list, if anybody signed up.
No, sir.
No one signed up? Any questions for Mr. Craddock? Any additional questions? I know we've talked to Mr. Craddock in the past about this. So. Okay, thank you, Mr. Craddock.
Thank you.
I'll close public hearing at 8:34 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the proposed VDOT secondary 6-year plan as presented and authorize the county administrator to sign any related necessary documents.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Do I have any discussion on the motion?
I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, that Jay Craddock, I think he does a great job. He's a good connect for the board. If I've had a problem, I go to him and he will address things, and I just appreciate everything he does, and I think we need to let him know as well, so, thanks.
Thank you. Please cast your votes. You got it. Waiting for one to vote.
You got it, Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries unanimously. We're down to public hearing number 2, residential waste hauling, PCC revisions. Mr. Adcock.
Yes, sir. Recently,
Let me open the public hearing, Mr. Adcock, at 8:35.
recently the county has been approached by several commercial entities seeking to haul and dispose of residential waste. Due to this interest, county staff reviewed the county's existing related ordinance and discovered it was lacking in detail, clarity, and proper safety measures to protect the county and the public. The revised Section 17.5 was presented to the Legislative Committee at their April 2021 hearing, and the Legislative Committee recommended that the board authorize the same for a public hearing tonight for potential adoption. Following conducting the legally required public hearing, county staff recommends the board approve the attached proposed revisions to Pittsylvania County Code, Section 17.5, as presented.
Thank you. Anyone sign up?
No, sir.
Any questions from Mr. Adcock? Okay, see none, I'll close the public hearing at 8:36 and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the attached revisions to Pittsylvania County Code 17-5 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Palmer.
I guess it's probably related to staff. If citizens sign up for this service, are they still required to pay the annual trash fee? And is that documented somewhere?
May I take this, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If you demonstrate to the Commissioner of Revenue that you do not utilize our landfill and have a commercial service, dump your trash, you are exempted from the 120. That's in a different section, but that's one of the 3 exemptions to it. Each year, solid waste providers will provide the Commissioner of Revenue with a list of current clients, and that's how they are exempted from the fee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. We're down to public hearing,
Hey,
temporary
Chris.
camping, campground revisions, and I'll open that public hearing at 8:38. Ms. Ragsdale.
Mr. Chairman, in a better effort to regulate a growing trend that we're seeing, which is camping in conjunction with events, ODAC offers this amenity, or would like to offer this amenity. The fairgrounds offers camping on site for their workers, et cetera. Staff decided to take a look at our ordinance and see if there was any way that we could accommodate that. Currently, our ordinance does not allow camping or recreational vehicles to be used for living or any other occupancy when not located in an approved campground in the county. So staff is recommending that you all adopt the new section 35-87, which will allow temporary camping when in conjunction with an approved event that's located on a property that's zoned for such event. This would not be allowed in residential districts, and this would only be allowed for the duration of the event, 24 hours prior to that event and 24 hours after that event, for no more than 21 consecutive days, or a total of 180 days within a calendar year. Additionally, staff is also recommending that we make some changes to the current campground regulations. That's section 35-138. Staff is proposing that we reduce the required lot size and that we also set an occupancy, designated this as a transient occupancy, and not allowing for permanent structures to be added to campers within campgrounds. This was taken before the Legislative Committee in April, and the Legislative Committee recommended that this be brought before the full board for a public hearing and adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Ragsdale. Anyone sign up?
Yes, sir. Kathy Nixon.
Hi, Hi, I'm Kathy Nixon. I'm from the Chatham Blairs District. And I can't help but, I know you guys changed our agenda a little bit today, so I'm trying to revise comments. But basically, you know, setting very clear guidelines is important, and setting and holding to those commitments are very important. And that's what truly protects your citizens and keeps us trusting in you. And part of that is I appreciate you guys delaying the conversations on the festival so that we can think more clearly about that and be thorough. We do understand that these ordinances cover all the various venues across Pennsylvania County, but it is hard not to think of the one coming to my backyard. But I think that all of the things that I had picked out for these two camping ordinances are specific to the ordinances regardless of the locality. So the first one in the section .3-87, the temporary camping ordinance, in the event that it's a temporary camping situation, 21 days feels like a really long time. And because it constantly references back to the event, makes me wonder what is the limit on the length of events under the other music festival thing. Because right now we're talking, I think the longest festival that we know of is 5-6 days, but now we're talking 21 days. So I guess a question take away as we continue to discussion elsewhere is, are we talking or entertaining a 21-day event for the Blue Ridge Amphitheater? And that's why we're talking 21 days. I'm concerned about the 21 days, and even 180 days throughout the year almost puts you as a Virginia resident. Under the section .35-138, the campgrounds and recreational, I would like to make a recommendation based on some of the other information we've seen around the music festival, is having quiet hours specified in this ordinance. There are no quiet hours specified right now. The event, if you go online, the event that is coming up has quiet hours in their campground advertised from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. So I would recommend that any campground across the county, especially near residential areas, should have at least an 11 o'clock to 8 in the morning quiet hour designated. People are still living in the areas, getting up ready for school and work and need sleep and peace and quiet. The second recommendation for the ordinance revision I think we need to address is the burning bans. There are no regulations in the camping ordinance at all about open campfires. So I would really appeal to you guys to put something in there. Again, living nearby, there are things that can happen and want to make sure that those are taken care of. And then I do want to say that I'm very thankful to see that all of the lots have to have sewer and water on each site. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Ms. Ragsdale, some of this needed to be cleaned up to address some of the more lengthy activities that happen at the agricultural center. Is that correct?
Correct. So if you look at the fairgrounds, the fair runs for a period of, I think, 2 weeks. They have setup time and they have breakdown time, so this would accommodate those workers that are living on site. Additionally, ODAC has events that are 2 and 3 weeks long, so this would accommodate those events as well. And I would just like to add that the campground regulations only apply to actual permitted campgrounds. So that would require a special use permit for a campground. It would not apply to any temporary camping event permit that was issued.
Such as the music festivals or?
Correct. So unless they would not be considered a permanent campground, they would only be issued possibly temporary camping permits if they could present the documentation that we're requiring to issue those permits. A permanent campground would be like Elkhorn Lake or Paradise Lake or something like that that came and requested a special use permit for that use.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to close that public hearing at 8:45. and entertain the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
make a motion to approve the creation of Pittsylvania County Code 35-87 and the revisions to 35-138 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Please cast your votes. Please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. Any unfinished business, Mr. Hunt? Okay, we're down to new business, estate of Mary J. Walters, excess funds payment. Mr. Hunt?
Yes, this item is before you tonight. Mr. Terry is requesting the board award him $86,998.34 in surplus funds for the delinquent tax sale of parcel ID number 2366-379913, Virginia Code Section 58.13967, which is attached and included in your board packet, gives you the discretion to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion or questions of Mr. Hunt? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Well, it's
If
going
there's
to die
no
for lack of a
motion,
motion.
this fails for a motion.
Okay. There will be no action taken due to there was no motion, no second. We're down to new business, 12B, DRHA and CDBG planning grant submission approval. Ms. Ragsdale.
The Danville Redevelopment and Housing Authority recently purchased 14 acres in the county with the intent to construct 10 houses for workforce housing. They are requesting to apply for a $50,000 planning grant from the, or through the Community Development Block Grant Planning Grant Fund through DHCD. This would fund a feasibility study, environmental assessment, and development of construction plans for the project. They are requesting that the county apply for this on their behalf. That is required by the Department of Housing and Community Development for this grant. The West Piedmont Planning District Commission has agreed to serve as that grant writer, and they are also willing to serve as the administrator for that grant. The county would just act as the fiscal agent, and they would apply. We would apply on their behalf. The executive director for the Danville Redevelopment and Housing Authority is here if you have any questions relating specifically to their project.
Any questions for Ms. Ragsdale? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Dr. Miller.
make a motion authorizing county staff to apply on behalf of DRHA, requesting $50,000 from the CDBG Planning Grant Program for the project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Miller, seconded by Supervisor Davis. Any discussion? Okay, please cast your votes. Please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Hunt, are there matters from the work session?
No, sir.
Thank you. Board members' reports. I'll start with Mr. Dudley this evening.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I want to give a shout out to, well, I call him my brother-in-law, Donnie Vaden. He lost his brother this last week. just want to be lifting his family up in prayer. Donnie's been a good friend, good close friend for years and years, and just want to be lifting the family up of his brother. Also, I got a note tonight that my next door neighbor has been very, very sick. He's got dementia really bad, and they actually moved him into a nursing home last week, and he is down. They've got him on oxygen, morphine, and his days are numbered. His name is Mr. Krantz. If people could just lift him up in their prayers at nighttime. That's the Vaden family and the Krantz family has lost 2 loved ones. Also, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank, especially tonight in this meeting, we've had a lot of stuff we've gone over through the cases, but I don't ever want to fail to thank, the folks that did the legwork behind these rezoning cases, and want to thank Emily. What a good job she does. I lift her up and I praise her all I can, because if I need something, she's a really go-to person that I can really, I just know the job will be done. I want to thank Vaden too. Vaden helped out on a lot of things, several things this week with me, and I appreciate Vaden as well. So just want to thank those two and the rest of the staff, David and Kim, which is not here. But anyway, Kaylin, you do a wonderful job. Just want to thank our staff. They make our life much better, and just want to let them all know that we really appreciate them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Dr. Miller.
Just a very brief comment. On this past Saturday, I think it was May 15th, and May 15th would have been the 69th birthday of my departed dear friend, Reverend Stedman Payne, who served as our DSS Board of Directors, and he was also our very first county Teacher of the Year back in the 1980s. And of course, he will be sadly missed, and I hope everybody will remember the work that he did for our county, please.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Mr. Davis.
No, I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ingram.
Oh, yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues on this board for allowing me to make the presentations to Mr. Shelton for his 30 years as a volunteer at the library, and for remembering the late F.A. Cates as well as the late Sheriff Harold Plaster, who contributed so much to this county, and also I'd like to give thanks to their family for sharing them with us for these many years. Also, please remember Pam Ford, our jail nurse, at the loss of her daughter, Michaela, who was killed in a car wreck. And this past week, we remembered law enforcement across the nation as far as their tireless service, but more specifically this past Saturday, where we remembered National Peace Officers Memorial Day. It's a time nationwide that we remember the officers that have made the ultimate sacrifice. And I'd like to take a minute for us to remember George Williams, James Bryant, David Payne, Will Coward, Holland Thomas, Eugene McBride, Frankie Betterton, Terry Barker, Henry Brooks, and Henry Harmon. These men died while serving this county, and so may we never forget their sacrifice. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make the public aware that the Climax Volunteer Fire and Rescue Squad this coming Saturday, May 22nd at 4:30 is having a drive-through fish dinner fundraiser. So if you're in the area and want to support the folks that support us, just want to make that announcement.
Thank you. Mrs. Scarce.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank all those that supported the Friends of NRA banquet on May the 6th. We only netted around $56,000 to help with firearm safety and the shooting sports in our area, but I think we did a pretty good job with the limited seating we had because of the Chinese virus mandates. So I want to thank all those that participated. It was a great event, and I'm looking forward to next year when we can fully open up a facility without masks and we can enjoy ourselves. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scares. Yes, first of all, I'd like to remind everybody once again, I try to do this at hopefully every meeting. We have our work sessions that start at 4:30, so we do a lot of deep dive, and if you want to hear really what's going on, please, it's live streamed if you can't make it, but it's also available if you want to be there to listen. So I know a lot of times it may seem that we're moving through items fairly quickly. It's because they've been addressed at 4:30 before we get here. I want to take this opportunity to thank the community citizens that had the meeting Thursday night that Mr. Scares and I attended. They were respectful and they were very inquisitive about the events and future events. And in particular, I want to compliment and thank two people that are still here tonight that have stayed around that were part of that meeting, Ms. Nixon and Mr. Holly. Appreciate the way you all have asked your questions and handled yourself in such a professional manner. We, as a board, have had a lot of discussions about this and honestly concerns. We want to do the right thing. We want to get it right as we get out of the gate, for or against. We want to do the right thing, and we want to do the best job we can to always protect our citizens and also do what's in the greater good of Pittsylvania County as a whole. So I compliment you on, both of you all, on the professional way you handled yourselves, and in particular, I'll thank the two pastors in person that were there the other night and moderating the meeting and all, but we really do appreciate that. The information was valuable and important, and also want to thank our sheriff who showed up that night to participate in that. Was a long night, but we got a lot of questions answered, and hopefully some that were at least put a little bit of ease into your minds that we were trying to get all the facts and do the right thing. So I thank you all for that. Next, I'd like to take the opportunity to make some appointments for the new naming committee that is being established. Mr. Hunt, I'm not restricted on appointments by number, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
You can do as many as you want, although I believe it was contemplated to be 3, but it's at your discretion to add to that.
Okay. I would like to name 4 individuals to work on that committee. You know, I tend to find the committees to almost be a moot point anymore because this board here for the last 2 years, or year and a half, has been very active in participating at all committees and showing up to be sure that they're serving their citizens at all occasions. So, and they're there to also enlist their input. So, but the naming committee will consist of Mr. Dudley from the northern end of the county, Dr. Miller from the central part of the county, representing the Bannister District, Mr. Scares, who is also kind of center and south of the county, and lastly, Mr. Ingram, who touches the far south of the county. Those 4 individuals will make up the naming committee as we try to enforce our ordinance and do the right thing as we're naming different things as they go forward. We, once again, want to do the right thing. So those 4 individuals will participate and be part of that committee. I know I have confidence in all 4 of them that we will vet things properly before they're brought to the board for consideration of naming anything. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to our county administrator for any comments he might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple very quickly. One, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Miller this week, or I guess it was last week, finalizing the diagrams of the African American Memorial to be placed in Chatham on our property on Center Street. It's an excellent, it's going to be a passive park. It looks fantastic. The fundraising's going well, and we want to thank Dewberry Engineers for donating their professional landscaping and engineering services to bring that design to a construction type drawing. So looking forward to working on that. Also want to report to the board and also to the public that we will be closing the Gretna Vaccination Clinic this week. The last vaccination day, I believe, is Thursday, the 20th, I think. It's been a mixed bag of a project. It got out of the gate really strong. We did this at the request of the Virginia Department of Health and Virginia Division of Emergency Management. They were trying to get an additional site in the north of the county, and we were lucky enough to find the former Foodland building. It was one of the few buildings that had the necessary parking and square footage to accommodate our needs. We had 2 very successful mass vaccination days, as well as probably about 6 or 8 smaller clinic days in that facility. We entered into a 90-day lease on that facility. We're only using it for 60. We're hoping and have requested to get out of that lease 30 days early. Hadn't heard back on that, but have been in contact with Mr. Tim Clark, who's president of Blair Construction and is the managing member of the ownership group of that building, requesting to be released for 1/3 of our $30,000 contract to use that building. I had the pleasure on last Wednesday night to do a ride-along with some of our deputies, the folks in Troop 4, I believe, 4. They'll tell you it's the best platoon of the group, and it was a great pleasure to work with them overnight, to see what they do, and to get to know these employees, and just to understand better the day in and day out, the extremely difficult and sometimes frustrating job of being a deputy in our county. And I commend them for their patience and their professionalism working in some just really sometimes unfortunate situations. So had a great night that night with Deputy Cruz, who was my chaperone for the evening. And finally, I did want to say publicly, I haven't had a chance to talk to the board about our $600,000 grant that we received to remediate brownfields or to do engineering work and remediation and planning for environmentally challenged properties in Hurt, in Gretna, in Chatham, as well as Blair's. It was the largest grant offered by the federal government in this round, and we were one of 4 recipients in Virginia. We got double the next highest grantee, so real proud of that. Yes. I will say that is a product of the work. You may remember the visit we got about 16 months ago from a consulting engineer that Ms. Susan McCulloch was helping put together a package to make that grant possible. And that's all I had this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smitherman. I failed to do one thing when I named that naming committee, and the chairman will be our vice chairman, Mr. Ron Scares. Mr. Hunt, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, then we will close this meeting, but we all have to stay because we've got to reconvene our closed session that we recessed earlier. So thank you for being here.